When she gave free food to a quiet man in a black suit, she was fired on the spot. What she didn't know was that the man was Denzel Washington, and what he did next changed her life forever. Barbara wiped down the counter with slow, practiced movements, her eyes flicking to the clock above the soda machine. 11:27 p.m., just 33 minutes until close. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead, washing everything in that too bright, too flat hue that made time feel stuck. McDonald's on West Temple didn't see much traffic this late. Maybe a delivery driver grabbing a coffee or a regular from the gas station next door looking for fries. Most of the city had gone quiet, save for the occasional hum of traffic rolling by outside. Inside, it was just Barbara and the fryer's hiss. She adjusted her visor, tucked a loose curl behind her ear, and moved to refill the ketchup dispensers. Her body ached, like it always did by this point in the night, legs sore from standing, eyes heavy from studying earlier, brain worn down by everything in between. She was 24, full-time at McDonald's, part-time student, full-time sister. Her brother Jordan, just turned 11, was asleep by now back at their one-bedroom apartment. She had left a note on the fridge, heated up dinner, made sure his homework was done before she left, like always. Their parents weren't around, hadn't been for a long time. It was just the two of them. And Barbara had made a promise, one she never said out loud, but lived out every single day, that he wouldn't have to carry what she had to carry. Some people chase dreams. Barbara chased stability, a working heater, groceries that lasted the week, internet fast enough for school, every paycheck chipped away at overdue bills and barely there savings. Every tip went toward textbooks and takeout on the nights she was too tired to cook. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. She had dreams once, bigger ones. But life has a way of reshuffling priorities. Now it was about getting through the day, one shift, one semester, one rent payment at a time. Outside, the streetlights flickered. Inside, the fryer beeped. Barbara stretched her arms behind her, cracked her neck, and glanced at the door. Almost closing time. She just had to get through the next 30 minutes, then do it all again tomorrow. The bell above the door jingled. Software. Almost hesitant. Barbara looked up from the counter, expecting the usual. A rideshare driver, maybe a guy grabbing a soda on his way home. But the man who stepped in didn't fit the usual mold. He moved slowly, deliberately, with the kind of presence that didn't ask for attention, but somehow got it anyway. A worn gray hoodie hung low over his face, the brim of a Navy baseball cap casting shadows across his features, dark jeans, weathered boots, hands in his pockets. He didn't look up right away, just stood near the entrance for a second, letting his eyes adjust to the light. Then he made his way to the register. Barbara straightened instinctively. "Evening," she said, keeping her voice neutral, friendly. "What can I get started for you?" The man glanced up just briefly. His eyes were sharp, calm, the kind that had seen a lot and didn't need to prove it. He looked at the glowing menu behind her, then back down to the counter. "Just a burger and fries," he said. His voice was low, smooth. "No drink, no onions?" She nodded, tapping it into the screen. "Anything else?" He shook his head. "That's it." Barbara gave a small smile, more out of habit than anything else. "That'll be $5.83. He reached into his pocket, then paused. His hand stayed there for a second too long, like he was unsure if he wanted to pull anything out at all. Then, instead of grabbing his wallet, he looked at her. Their eyes met for a moment. Something about the way he looked at her made the space between them feel heavier, not threatening, just full, present. Barbara hesitated, then shrugged lightly. "You know what?" she said, voice quieter now. "Don't worry about it. I've got you." The man blinked, slowly, like he wasn't used to hearing that. "You sure?" he asked. "Yeah," she said, already moving to drop the fries. "It's late. You're here. It's no big deal." For a second, he just stood there. Then he nodded, once. "Appreciate that." Barbara turned away to prep the order, not seeing the way he looked at her one last time before taking a seat in the corner. The clock ticked past 11:35, and the night kept moving. Barbara slid the basket of fries into the oil, the quiet sizzle filling the silence between them. The man had taken a seat by the window, far from the overhead lights, like he preferred the shadows. He didn't fidget, didn't scroll through his phone, just sat there. Still. His calm unnerved her a little, not in a bad way, just enough to notice. When the order was ready, she bagged it slowly, carefully. Burger, no onions, fries still hot. A few extra napkins. She folded the top of the bag and turned toward him. He stood before she could call him over, almost like he knew. Barbara held the bag out, but something in her gut pulled her hand back for a split second. Not hesitation, instinct. The kind you get from being around all kinds of people, all hours of the night. And this man didn't feel like someone passing through. She looked at him, really looked this time. And before she could overthink it, the words were out of her mouth. "Don't worry about it," she said, soft but steady. "It's on me." The man's brow lifted just slightly, not with surprise, but something closer to curiosity. His eyes searched hers for a beat, like he was trying to figure her out. Then he gave a slow, almost imperceptible nod. "That's rare," he said quietly. Barbara shrugged. "It's late. You look tired. I've had worse reasons." He took the bag from her hands. His touch was steady, respectful. He didn't say anything else, just nodded again and turned to leave. No fanfare, no dramatics, just a moment exchanged between two people who didn't owe each other anything, and chose kindness anyway. The bell above the door jingled as he stepped out into the night. Barbara watched him disappear into the dim streetlight glow, the soft crunch of his boots against the sidewalk fading. Then silence again. The clock ticked past 11:40. Another night shift, another stranger. But this one felt different. She just didn't know why. Not yet. Barbara turned back toward the counter, already reaching for the rag to wipe down the register when she heard it. An audible exhale from behind her. "Yo," came a low voice. "Babs, do you even know who that was?" She blinked, startled. Travis, the kitchen guy on grill, stood leaning against the fryer station. He'd come out just far enough to catch a glimpse of the man leaving, arms crossed, eyes wide. Barbara raised an eyebrow. "What are you talking about?" "That dude," Travis said, gesturing toward the door, like it had just let in royalty. "The one you gave free food to. You didn't recognize him?" She frowned. "Nah. Why?" He was already pulling out his phone. "Hold up, 1 second." Barbara crossed her arms, half amused, half exhausted. She'd seen Travis get like this before, spinning conspiracy theories about customers who looked like rappers or former athletes. Most of the time, it was nothing. But when he turned the phone toward her, her heart stuttered. It was a photo, grainy, old press shot. Same jawline, same eyes, same quiet intensity under a cap, and smile that didn't quite reach all the way. Denzel Washington. Her stomach dropped. "No," she said slowly. "That wasn't..." Travis zoomed in on the image. "I swear to God that was him. You didn't see it? Come on, he even talked like him. That voice, the way he looked at you. That was Denzel." Barbara stared at the screen. Her pulse ticked in her throat. The man with the hoodie. The one who sat like he owned the moment. The one who had said, "That's rare." She felt heat crawl up her neck. Not embarrassment, not regret. Just disbelief. Denzel Washington. She had comped Denzel Washington. "Holy sh..." she whispered, still staring at the photo. She couldn't finish the sentence. Outside, the street was still empty, but her mind wasn't. And somehow, deep down, she knew that moment wasn't over, not even close. The office always smelled faintly like burnt coffee and printer paper. It was barely more than a storage closet with a desk, but today it felt like a courtroom. Barbara sat across from her manager, arms folded tight across her chest. Her visor was still on. Her apron, grease-stained and wrinkled, clung to her like the day hadn't quite let go of her yet. Mr. Collins, the shift manager, didn't look angry. He looked tired. Tired in the way middle management often did, always caught in someone else's rules. He held a sheet of paper between his fingers, tapping it lightly against his knee. "I watched the tape," he said. No emotion in his voice, just protocol. Barbara didn't say anything at first. "You gave out a meal for free," he continued. "Didn't ring it up, no discount, no comp." She nodded slowly. "Yeah, I know. It was just one order. He didn't ask for it. I offered." Collins leaned back in his chair, the vinyl creaking under his weight. "Doesn't matter who he is, that's not how this works." "I get that," she said, voice calm, controlled. "But sometimes people just need a break." It was late. He looked like he needed one. Collins looked at her, really looked this time, like maybe he knew she meant more than she was saying. But the pause that followed didn't change anything. He sighed. "I like you, Barbara," he said. "You work hard, you show up. But policy is policy." She felt her stomach twist, but her face didn't change. She had gotten good at that. "So I'm fired," she said flat. "I don't have a choice," he replied, quieter now. Barbara stood slowly, hands clenched into fists in the pockets of her apron. Her body felt numb, like she was floating just a few inches outside of herself. No warning, no write-up, just gone. Outside the office, the fryers kept hissing, the drive-through bell chimed, and the world moved on without her. She clocked out for the last time, the numbers on the screen blinking back at her like nothing had happened. Then she walked out the door, and the weight hit her all at once. The bus stop was 4 blocks away, but Barbara didn't wait. She just walked. The cool night air clung to her skin like sweat that wouldn't dry, the kind that came from stress, not heat. Her name tag was still on. She passed the same streetlights she always did, their flicker more noticeable now. Maybe they had always been broken like this. Maybe she had just never looked up long enough to notice. The city didn't care. Cars passed without slowing. Windows stayed shut. Even the breeze felt indifferent. By the time she reached her apartment, her legs ached in a dull, dragging kind of way. Her key stuck in the door for a second before it clicked. Inside, the living room was dim, lit only by the soft blue glow of a cartoon still playing on the small TV. Jordan was asleep on the couch, his body curled up like he had tried to stay awake, but didn't make it. A plate with half-eaten spaghetti sat on the floor beside him. Barbara set her bag down gently, crouched beside him, and brushed a hand over his curls. He stirred, eyes cracking open. "Hey," he mumbled, voice groggy, "you're home early." "Yeah," she said, forcing a small smile. "Slow night." He yawned, then nodded. "Cool, I saved you some food." Her throat tightened. "Thanks, buddy." He drifted back to sleep before she could say anything else. She stood in the kitchen a few minutes later, staring at the same bills pinned to the fridge. Rent was due in 6 days. Jordan's new textbooks hadn't shipped because her card had declined. The car insurance lapsed last week. Her job was gone, and with it, the fragile scaffolding she'd built around their lives. She leaned against the sink, hands gripping the counter, until her knuckles turned white. Invisible. That's how she felt. Not seen, not heard. Just another disposable name on a schedule that could be erased with a few clicks. She thought about the man in the hoodie, the calm in his voice, the way he'd said, "That's rare." And for a moment she wondered if maybe kindness was a mistake. Then she looked at her sleeping brother on the couch, and she knew she couldn't afford to believe that. Not now. It had been 2 days since the job disappeared. Barbara sat at the small kitchen table, her laptop open in front of her, screen glowing with job listings she'd already seen twice. She scrolled anyway, hoping something new would show up, something flexible, something that paid enough, something that didn't ask for more than she had left to give. Her coffee had gone cold an hour ago. The same half-load of laundry still sat in the basket by the door. Jordan was at school, and the silence in the apartment felt heavier than usual. She clicked apply again, typed in her name, again. The knock startled her. It was firm, twice. Not urgent, not impatient, just confident. Barbara stood slowly. She wasn't expecting anyone. Her heart ticked faster as she peeked through the peephole. A man stood outside, mid-40s, maybe older, clean-shaven, tailored charcoal gray suit, not flashy, just crisp, professional. He held something in his hand, a card. Barbara opened the door a few inches. Yes? He gave a polite nod. Are you Barbara? She hesitated. Yeah. He extended the card. Mr. Washington would like a word. The card was heavy, off-white, embossed with clean lettering. DW/private office. A number, nothing else. Barbara looked at it, then at him. Denzel Washington, she asked, unsure if she even believed the words coming out of her mouth. The man didn't smile, just nodded once. He asked me to find you. If you have time, we can go now. She blinked. Now? He glanced at his watch. It's a short drive. Barbara didn't move for a second. This didn't feel real. None of it did. But then again, nothing about that night had felt real either. She grabbed her hoodie from the back of the chair, stuffed her phone in her pocket, and slipped on her shoes. Okay, she said quietly. The man held the door open for her. She stepped out into the hallway, the card still tight in her grip, heart pounding louder than her footsteps. Whatever this was, it wasn't just about a burger anymore. The restaurant was quiet, upscale, but not loud about it. No music, no clinking wine glasses, just soft lighting, clean lines, and the kind of calm that made you lower your voice without realizing it. Barbara followed the man through the front, past empty tables and curious glances from the staff. He stopped near a corner booth. And there he was. Denzel. No hat this time, no hoodie. Just a simple dark sweater, sleeves pushed slightly up his arms. He sat alone, posture relaxed, one hand resting on a small cup of coffee. He looked up as they approached. Barbara, he said, his voice unmistakable. She froze for a second, like her brain hadn't quite caught up with her eyes. Then she nodded slowly. Hi? He gestured to the seat across from him. Sit. She slid in, her palms slick against the table. Denzel gave the man a small nod and he disappeared, leaving the two of them alone. Barbara didn't know what to say. Her throat was tight. Her heart beat too loud. But Denzel? He didn't rush. He just looked at her. I didn't forget your kindness, he said, voice low but steady. You didn't ask who I was. You didn't try to impress anyone. You just saw a tired man and gave him a meal. Barbara opened her mouth, but nothing came out. He leaned forward slightly, fingers laced together. That kind of thing doesn't happen much anymore, he said. Not without expectation, not without strings. She finally found her voice. It wasn't a big deal. He tilted his head. It was to me. Silence stretched between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Barbara stared down at her hands. I got fired, she said quietly. I know. That caught her off guard. She looked up. Denzel's expression was calm, but there was something in his eyes, understanding maybe, something deeper. I don't believe in letting good people go unnoticed, he said. You gave when you had nothing to gain. That matters. Barbara swallowed hard. I don't understand. Why me? He leaned back, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Because people like you are the reason I still believe in the world. And Barbara, for the first time in days, didn't feel invisible. She felt seen. Barbara sat there, the silence hanging between them like something fragile and sacred. Denzel hadn't said anything for a few seconds, just let the weight of his last words settle. Then he reached into his coat pocket and slid a folder across the table. She stared at it, then back at him. "What is this?" she asked. He didn't answer right away, just waited until she opened it. Inside, documents, flyers, a logo embossed on thick cardstock, the Next Step Initiative, a new program focused on community arts, youth leadership, mentorship, built for kids who needed more than just classrooms, and lectures who needed someone to believe in them. "We're starting something new," he said. "Downtown, after-school workshops, mentoring, creative space for kids with nowhere else to go." Barbara blinked. "And you want me to—" "I want you to be part of it," he said simply. She stared at him, stunned. "Why me?" "Because you see people," he said. "Most folks look right through each other, but not you. That night you didn't see a movie star. You saw a man." He paused, his voice quieter now. "You didn't give me food. You gave me dignity." Her throat tightened. "I'm not looking for charity," she whispered. "This isn't charity," he said. "It's opportunity, and it's yours if you want it." Barbara looked down at the folder again. For a long time, her life had been about getting through, just surviving the next shift, the next bill, the next late-night walk home. But this felt different. It felt like a door she didn't even know existed had just cracked open. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid to walk through it. The building was nothing special, just an old rec center with paint peeling off the back wall and a parking lot full of potholes. But inside, it buzzed. Kids with sketchbooks tucked under their arms, volunteers sorting through donated supplies, voices echoing off concrete floors, full of energy, full of something that felt like possibility. Barbara stood by the welcome table, adjusting her name tag. It felt strange seeing her name in bold letters again, not printed on a receipt, not under a company logo, just Barbara, no title, no uniform. She took a breath, still not used to any of this. Her first day had been a blur, touring the space, meeting the team, sitting in on planning meetings where people actually listened when she spoke. But now, 2 weeks in, it was starting to feel real. She led her first workshop that Friday. A group of girls, all between 11 and 14, sat in folding chairs, scribbling in journals, while Barbara stood in front of them, heart pounding. She didn't give a speech, she just talked. About hard days, about showing up anyway, about the power of having someone believe in you, even if that someone is just yourself. And they listened. They asked questions. They shared their own stories. And by the end of the session, one girl stayed behind, holding her notebook like it was something sacred. "You talk like you know what it's like," she said. Barbara smiled softly. "I do." She left the building that night with her chest full and her eyes stinging. The kind of tired that didn't feel like defeat, the kind that felt like purpose. She still worked part-time to keep the lights on, still studied in the evenings when the apartment was quiet and Jordan was asleep. But this place, this role, was stitching something back together inside her. A version of herself she'd lost somewhere between survival and sacrifice. Now she was finding her voice again, not for herself alone, but for every girl who had ever been told to stay quiet and stay small. And this time, she wasn't going to shrink. The camera panned across the community center, walls now painted a soft, hopeful blue, kids laughing in the background, their hands covered in clay and chalk dust. And in the center of it all stood Barbara, her voice calm, her smile real. She didn't love being in front of a camera, but when the local news team reached out, asking to do a segment on the initiative, Denzel insisted she be the one to speak. "You're the reason this place breathes," he'd told her. "So let them hear you." The segment aired late on a Wednesday evening. Quiet hour. When most of the city was winding down, dishes in the sink and TVs humming in the background. And in one of those living rooms, just a few blocks from where it all started, someone was watching. Mr. Collins sat on the edge of his worn-out couch, remote still in hand, eyes glued to the screen. He didn't say anything, didn't blink much either. There she was, Barbara, talking about leadership, about seeing kids who'd felt invisible, about building something that felt like hope. Same voice, same steady way of speaking, but different, stronger. He scratched his jaw, didn't smile, didn't frown, just watched. And maybe somewhere deep in that silence, there was a little regret. No text sent, no email, no attempt to reach out. Just the sound of the TV echoing in his empty living room. And Barbara still speaking, still rising. Barbara sat on the edge of Jordan's bed, envelope in hand, heart pounding. He was pulling off his sneakers, humming some theme song she didn't recognize, his energy bouncing from one end of the room to the other like always. "I've got something for you," she said. He looked up, eyes wide. "Is it a video game?" She laughed. "Number better." He tore open the envelope, eyes scanning the letter inside. He blinked, then looked at her. "Wait, I got in?" Barbara nodded, trying to stay cool. "You're going to the summer STEM camp. Robotics, coding, the whole thing." His face exploded into a grin. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious," she said, already ruffling his hair as he tried to dodge her hand. "You earned it." He hugged her out of nowhere, tight. The kind of hug that came from joy, too big for words. "You're the coolest sister ever," he mumbled into her shoulder. Barbara smiled, blinking fast. "Don't let it go to your head." Later that night, after Jordan fell asleep, Barbara sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the crumpled acceptance letter. It wasn't just paper, it was proof. Proof that something was shifting, that survival was becoming something more, that she could give him things she never had, that maybe, just maybe, the cycle was breaking. All because she stayed kind, even when it cost her. All because someone had seen that and paid it forward. The conference hall was nothing fancy, just rows of folding chairs, a low stage, and a single mic on a wooden stand. But the air inside was electric, buzzing with nerves, ideas, and stories that needed to be told. Barbara stood behind the curtain, hands gripping her note cards, thumb rubbing the corner until it softened. It wasn't stage fright exactly. She could speak. She'd done it before. But this was different. People were here to listen, not out of obligation, not because they had to, because they wanted to. Denzel had opened the event with a short welcome, then faded into the background, letting others take the spotlight. That was his way. He'd given her the space. Now it was hers to step into. "Next," the moderator said, "we have Barbara Moore, community leader, mentor, co-architect of the Next Step initiative." Applause followed, then silence. Barbara walked onto the stage, slow, steady. She looked out over the crowd, mostly women, some young, some older, some leaning in, waiting for what she might say. She didn't use the notes. "My name's Barbara," she began. "I used to work night shifts at McDonald's. I thought that was all I'd ever be." A pause. "Then one night, I gave a stranger a meal. It cost me my job, but it gave me everything else." She told them the story, all of it, the silence, the weight, the way one small choice had unraveled something bigger, both terrifying and beautiful. "You don't need a title to have dignity," she said, voice clear. "And sometimes the smallest kindness is the one that saves a life, yours or someone else's." The room was still, listening. Barbara stood there, steady under the lights, and for the first time, she wasn't speaking from a place of survival. She was speaking from strength. Barbara didn't announce it. No press release, no big speech. Just a quiet email to the board and a line in her monthly meeting notes. Proposal, micro-fund pilot. Focus, women working minimum wage, education support, $5,000 seed. It passed without debate. She called it the First Meal Fund, a nod to where everything began. The idea was simple: quiet grants, no applications that required essays or proof of hardship, no hoops, just trust. The first check went to a woman named Letitia, a night janitor with 3 kids and a dream of becoming a nurse. The second to a single mom working retail who wanted to finish her GED. The third to a barista saving for cosmetology school. Each envelope carried the same note: "Someone believed in me. Now I believe in you." Barbara. She didn't tell her brother, didn't tell her coworkers. The stories weren't for posting, they were for passing on. It felt right that way. Barbara still showed up to the center every morning with a coffee in one hand and her backpack slung over one shoulder. She still answered texts from mentees late at night, still sat cross-legged on paint-splattered floors during workshops, still listened more than she spoke. But something had shifted. She wasn't just surviving, she wasn't even just rising. She was reaching back and pulling others forward. The street hadn't changed much. Same cracked sidewalk, same flickering street lamp outside the gas station, same buzz of traffic rolling through late evening light. The McDonald's on West Temple still stood like it always had, tired, ordinary, humming with the low routine of night shift life. Barbara walked past it with her hands in her coat pockets, a breeze tugging at the edges of her scarf. She didn't slow down, but she did glance through the window. Inside, a girl in a red visor wiped down a counter. A man in a puffer jacket waited at the register. The fryer hissed in the background. Barbara smiled, just a flicker. Small, real. It had been a year. She hadn't stepped foot inside since that night. Not because of bitterness, just because life had moved forward and she'd followed. But as she stood there on the sidewalk, her breath catching in the cold, she felt the weight of it. How everything had started with one small choice, one meal, one moment. She adjusted her bag on her shoulder and kept walking, her steps steady, her spirit quiet. She wasn't heading to work tonight. She was heading to the center, her center. Her name now quietly listed on the board of directors, her voice a part of decisions that shaped futures. She passed a mural painted on the side of an old bookstore. It was new, vibrant, splashes of deep orange and cobalt blue. In the center of it, an outstretched hand, offering something small. A paper bag, no name, no credit, just a gesture. Barbara paused, her heart full. Then the voice came. Not hers exactly, but the version of herself that lived beneath the surface. Calm, sure, wiser now. This story was brutal, but this story on the right-hand side is even more insane.